it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share some bookmarks that I made for Thrifty Paper Garden's Crafty Challenge Benefit Giveaway, Almost 1,000 Subbies Giveaway Challenge. Whew, that's a mouthful. Julie is such a sweetheart, and her daughters are school teachers, so she thought she would ask folks to make some bookmarks for third grade boys and girls. She's actually asked us to make 5, but I wanted to go ahead and show you these 4 first because I have a little process video sharing with you guys how I colored up these little cutie patooties using Zig clear color real brush markers with my Misty and a Pentel water brush. And I heat embossed with clear embossing powder on craft paper the wood grain fence that they're peeking over, and that's from this Lawn Fawn wood grain backdrops stamp set, which I think is so versatile. And for the little critters, I use the Art Impressions mini front and back sets. I use the bunny and ducky set as well as the cat and dog set. And this was the first time that I inked up all of these critters other than the little puppy, which I have used so many times. I love these sets. They're so stinking cute. And let me show you guys how they all look. So I just think the backs of them are so adorable. And I thought I would use some watercoloring to color up these little critters because it gives a nice soft look. And what I did for the backs of each one is I found some quotes that I thought would work with each of these little critters. So this one says, "Some bunny loves reading, today a reader, tomorrow a leader." And that quote is from Margaret Fuller. And isn't that cute? And the puppy one says, "Outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read." And that's a quote from Groucho Marx. And I think that is so cute for the little puppy. The little kitty one said, "Books, cats, life is good." And that's a quote from Edward Gorey. And then the little ducky one says, "Just tell yourself, ducky, you're really quite lucky." And that's a quote from Dr. Seuss. And now I'll go ahead and attach the tutorial video on how I made these little critters to top these bookmarks. I'm starting with the Lawn Fawn wood grain backdrops stamp set, and I'm going to use this wood grain background clear stamp on this long clear acrylic block. And I'm prepping a piece of craft cardstock with my EK Tools powder tool so that it doesn't have any static on that. And I'm using some Versamark ink and really getting that stamp nice and juicy. And I'm putting a good amount of pressure on the back of this stamping block to make sure that that ink transfers over to the craft cardstock nice and clearly. Now I'm using some Recollections clear embossing powder, and I'm catching the excess in a coffee filter so that I can recapture that and save that back into the bottle. Now I've preheated my heat tool and I'm heating the back and the front because I don't want the cardstock to scorch and I don't want it to warp too badly. And heating it on the back and on the front ensures that. And I love how this clear embossing powder actually is very visible on the craft because the embossing powder makes it a little darker. I'm trimming off the excess and then cutting this strip in half so that I can double it up to create the base of my bookmark. I think doubling it up and that embossing really adds some nice stability and strength to the base of this bookmark. I am using some wet glue. This is my favorite wet glue, Art Glitter Glue, but you can use any kind of adhesive as long as it's permanent. I'm going to take this Art Impressions stamp set. This is the front and back's mini cat and dog set, and I am going to place these on my Misty. I've removed the foam backing because these are already mounted on foam, so they're thick enough. And I'm just going to place the dog and the cat and the head of the cat and dog. And now I'm going to take my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I'm taking the black, the 010, and the dark pink, which is the 027, and I'm just going to color up the little kitty's bow with that dark pink, and everything else on the cat I'm going to be coloring up with the black. And because I have this on the Misty, I know I can do some repeat stamping if I need to, and I do. I'm going to re-ink the ears there, the eyes. That's pretty good. I'm going to take my water brush and start moving some of that ink around. And I think too much water is coming out of my water brush there, so I'm just dabbing it with a tissue. Now I'm going to go all around the edges of the little kitty's head and just blend in from the outside in. That tail got a little too dark. There was too much ink right there, so I dabbed it. And when you dab it up with a tissue, it seems to make it super light, but I'm not worried about that because it's always easier to build up color. And with watercoloring, it's really forgiving. So as long as you don't leave a big dark splotch, you can always remove it and then add more layers after it dries. And I lost a lot of the detail of that little bow, so I'm going back over the stamp with my zig marker, and I'm going to re-stamp over top, and that brings a lot of those details back into the image. Because the kitty became really pale after dabbing up the excess water with a tissue, I'm going back in directly onto the image with my marker and then blending it out with the water brush. And I'm doing that because I really wanted the kitty to be like a black cat, and I wanted more color in the image that I wasn't able to get with just re-inking the stamp. I wanted this to be a really dark image, and there aren't too many lines on the image itself, so without adding color directly onto the image, there wasn't too much ink that I could blend out with the water brush. So you can see me going back and forth between using the Zig Clean Color Real brush markers and the water brush, adding more and more depth of color. For the dog, I'm going to use a light gray, 091, and brown, which is 090. And first I'm going to just color up the ears, which I think will be a nice brown. And then maybe I'll do the tip of the tail. And again on the face. And then everything else I'm going to do with a gray so that it's going to look like it's a white dog with brown spots. Except that I'm going to use the black for the eyes, nose, and mouth. Now I'm going to stamp it out with the Misty tool and see how the impression comes out and if I have to do any repeat stamping. I am going to have to re-ink up the gray parts of the dog because those areas came out pretty lightly. And I'll stamp out the image one more time. And now I'll take my Pentel water brush and just blend in the color. And because this is a furry little critter, you don't have to be super detailed or worried about kind of bleed or anything like that because you can reestablish the details when you do a second stamping over top. I'm just trying to get some color down and blend it in nicely. I'm going to do one more application to get in some more details. Definition and depth of color. The second layer of watercoloring, I think, adds a real richness to the colors, and it's so easy to do. There's really no making a mistake here. You just have to take care not to add too much water, that's all. And like the kitty, the puppy doesn't have too many lines, so I'm actually going back in to add more color directly with the marker onto the image, and I'm blending it out with a water brush. I'll do the same with the white or light gray areas just to make sure that there's enough shadowing in there. I'll also add some light gray to the bottoms of the feet and the edges of the puppy white areas so I can get a little bit of extra shadowing there as well. So I just wanted to show you that in case the fussy cutting around these little dogs and cats is not quite exact, what I did was I colored the back edges so that if there's any area that peeks out by any chance, it will be consistent with the coloring. So I did that with both the cat and the dog, and now I'm ready to attach to the bookmark. And I'm just going to take some wet glitter glue. I like using the glue because it gives me a little bit of extra working time. I can move it a little bit, and it gives me a little extra time to adjust the front and back pieces so that they align together properly. And it looks like the little guy is peeking over a big wooden fence. That's the back side, and that's the front side. I'm going to do the same with a kitty. And again, I'm just using some more art glitter glue. This fine tip nozzle really helps me keep the glue inside these small images without bleeding outside too much. Front of the kitty, and it looks like there's a little cutout there. And just because I lost a little bit of the detail, I am going to reestablish the little whites of the eye and the little highlights on the tips of the noses as well. The fronts and the backs. So for the last two bookmarks, I use the Art Impressions mini front and back boy and girl mini stamp set. And I think these little kids are so adorable. And rather than using the craft cardstock and embossing a wood grain on it, I use some pattern paper. This has a nice slick finish to it, and it was just in my scrap box. So I double-sided it and then did the same thing that I did for the little critter bookmarks, using quotes that I thought would be inspirational about reading. This one says, "A child who carries a book with a bookmark in it is in two places at the same time." And that quote is from Tony Abbott. So that's the first one. And the little boy one says, "I do believe something very magical can happen when you read a good book." And that quote is from J.K. Rowling. And I colored up this little boy and girl with Copic markers rather than with watercoloring because I wanted to make sure that I kept the detail of their hair and their faces. I think critter images are a little bit more forgiving for watercoloring, and if you want more detailed coloring, Copic markers or other alcohol markers, just for me, they're a better way to go. I hope you enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.